Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Fourth World Book Club on 22 panels. I'm joined by actor Sean Harklerode, actor and playwright Mark Pracht. Yeah, we wrapped up Forever People and New Gods. One of them, I wasn't particularly satisfied with the ending, and the other one, I was slightly more satisfied with the ending. And Mr. Miracle continues, and it
All
was a
right.
pretty good issue. Yeah, that's where I'll go. That's my hot take off the top. Now I'll hand it over to the people who actually like no Kirby.
Um, well, which one were you satisfied with? That's my curiosity.
I was slightly more satisfied with the New Gods ending.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Slightly more satisfied with the New Gods ending. Um,
Well, I mean, I
and
think,
and I don't know that I was satisfied with either ending, but
well, thankfully,
but
you get two more Kirby New God stories when we're done with this thing at the
right.
very end.
And that's kind of what it felt like. Is the New Gods ending felt like an ending for now, and like this series is ending, but these characters aren't ending. Blah blah blah. Whereas
Mhm.
the Forever People ending felt like an ending. Like they're done, we're done. Uh, and no, not in a satisfying way. Just here, have this planet to go live on.
Right. It would be interesting to come back in 25 years to see what had sprouted from this seed we'd planted. Um, According to Evanier, Jack found out midway through uh, doing these pages that this would be the last issue.
Well, that would explain a lot.
So, yeah, I mean, to me, that it definitely explains Forever People,
Yeah,
bringing back Infinity Man, whom we haven't seen in forever, uh, and
people.
who had been banished, kind of like the Silver Surfer, uh,
Yeah, yeah. I
how,
mean, yeah, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
right. But I mean, he, I think it was the best thing he could come up with. Uh,
Yeah,
I think, in the beginning of it, he's the first several pages, he's not intending it to be the end. And that's why I think all of the Infinity Man stuff is like single page stuff
right.
because he probably just
Well,
inserted
a-
that back
and that
into the
was definitely
storyline.
one of the thoughts that I had on both issues. Like, when did he find out that, how long did he have to figure out an ending to these series? Did he know two issues back? Did he know and if he
Right.
didn't even know when he started this issue, that explains so much.
Well, I mean, I think that was part of par for the course when you're talking about like deep in the Bronze Age. I think that it
Right,
was sort of like, all right, guys, this ain't working. Wrap it up now, you know.
right.
I do think here's my feeling. I feel like um I absolutely agree with everything you guys said. The whole Infinity Man thing does feel like warmed over Kirby Silver Surfer stuff. Um and but you know, again, I love Jack. I think Jack is really brilliant. I think he's a genius. I also think that he tends to revisit some of the same stuff over and over again. Um, but for me, uh, and it goes along with whatever you guys, there's a palpable sense of sadness over all of this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's just like, uh, but you know, what's also interesting about that is that, the last couple of months that we've done this, we've all talked about how meandering and sort of unfocused everything felt, you
Right.
know? And And then when they say you're done, and it's like, okay, now I feel awful about everything. And I feel, and there's this deep sadness. And it's like, well, if there was a little more coherent plot momentum through all of these books,
You might not be done.
you might not be done, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and again, that's not me slagging on Jack. It's just that's the way it feels. All right, we'll see you guys next month.
Well, but we haven't talked about Mr. Miracle. Um,
Well, I mean,
I do think there's interesting things that happen. I think that, you know, um, I'm looking at I'm looking at Forever People right now, and once again, we have sort of these random powers that come out of nowhere and are attributed to some weird, I can't remember what they say, like atomic energy or something like that. And then, sort of the Deus Ex Machina of Infinity Man, who was always sort of a Deus Ex Machina, but it's just like in a way, that's the best idea in this book, and it's been gone for most of the run, right? And um and maybe he would have gotten around to it, but it seems like something that I would have jumped right to is like, where does, like, even before this banishment, where does Infinity Man go when they're not, you know, where is it's very clear here that he's a different
entity.
entity. I mean, it's not like Captain Planet where, we all become one, it's it but maybe it is. I don't know, but I would have liked to like how much like I really think that the series would have been a lot more interesting if Jack had thought, "Oh, maybe I should show Infinity Man on this other planet having adventures
Right.
wrapped into the rest of this, and there you could have put like a ticking time bomb on it, like uh, you know, both the Forever People and Infinity Man, if they can't reconnect, would cease to exist or whatever. I don't know, but I mean, there's all sorts of ways you could have gone with it, and yet it just ended up in this like sort of like sort of
More,
vaguely Scooby-Doo sort of series.
and
And
I mean,
I do feel like we can have this conversation because this is the end of the Forever People.
right.
They're not coming back, right?
I think
I know
somebody
that
did a miniseries
somebody
Punisher
did a
had a
miniseries.
second one.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not
Mhm.
that's not Kirby. That's
It was
not
Right.
his,
Right.
yeah,
Wayne Vane kind of stuff.
it was
Right.
kind of the big chill. They aged on the planet
Right.
and then de-aged by the end of it. But
Who had to sleep in the
Um,
race
I,
car?
no, I think and I kind of hate that we almost always come back to um having an editor would have made a huge
Yeah.
difference, but I think what I see a lot in um both Forever People and New Gods is that I think Jack thought that he built more of the world and the characters in his head than he really had. And if he'd bothered to put together like the Bible before he started, that had the character sheets, that had the world building sheets, so that there was a cohesion from the get-go, it might have made a huge difference.
Well, I also think that if it'd been envisioned, I I believe that Jack knew what he was aiming for, right?
Hmm.
like when I talk about the Star Wars sequels, like that's the big problem with that trilogy. Like nobody knew what the target was. Nobody knew what the point of that story was. And I think Jack knows how these characters are supposed to resolve. So in a way, and I know that it was the early 70s and this stuff never, like the idea of a miniseries never didn't even exist then, right? But if it would have been like Jack Kirby is going to do 12 issues of each one of these books, and then they're going to resolve, how much tighter would that have forced him to make that storytelling?
Yeah.
And um, because like all of this mythology, and clearly he had all sorts of ideas about mythology, it's like it's kind of jammed into like what was it, two issues of New Gods?
Yeah.
Like where we got some background on High Father and Dark Side and all of these things, and it's like, man, that's the stuff that's the meat of the matter, right? Like, because both of these books turned into um, just sort of repeating the same thing, right? The forever people will go into a situation and then they're like the Scooby-Doo gang, right? It's like, hey kids, let's figure out this mystery or whatever, or somebody will show up and attack them, or or whatever. And then uh New Gods was like, okay, there's a new threat from New Genesis or from Apocalypse. Orion gets enraged and attacks, and uh
Can I just say that I did love in New Gods that moment where the police detective is like, I don't know what it is with you and your routines or whatnot, but around here we'd all attack at once.
Right.
well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
The heroic code.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so I don't quite. I mean, and obviously he's dealing with a sort of Joseph Campbell hero myth kind of thing here,
Right.
right? Obviously, right? So Orion is the well, I mean, like not to blow, possible spoilers, but I mean, like, and we already know that there was the baby swap, right? So
Right.
you have Orion and you have Scott Free, and they're your two, heroes who have the call. Although Scott still doesn't seem to have gotten a call,
Nope.
to action. He's just sort of hanging out, and that's fine because wherever they were planning to go. But um, I did think, like, I thought, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was just like it was another fight between, Orion and Calabac, and the the supporting cast all seemed as kind of cipherish as usual.
Yep.
There was a point where somebody seemed to act like Terrible Turpin was still alive, and I'm like, okay, oh, what? Like, what's going on? I don't understand. Um, but I mean,
Well,
I don't. Yeah, but I also think that knowing that the book was over sort of put a pall on everything, and I think there was probably a kind of a sense of, well, what does any of this matter? You know?
right. Well, before leaving, so it feels like we've left Forever People, but I wanted to the thing that got me that drove me about Forever People, and it was very small, was the credit for research by Mark Evanier and Steve Sherman on the splash page. So I
Right.
I looked into that, and apparently that was credit for work done on the previous two issues with Dead Man. So uh, apparently they had informed Jack of stuff about Dead Man and how
The hook hand and all of that
yeah
stuff,
all that
right?
works. So
Yeah.
um, anyway, I wanted to
Yeah.
share that. But I think to me the problems with these two issues, obviously seems to have found out midway through that this is the end.
Right.
And forever people, he found a way to end it, or at least to end it for now, to give it a new beginning. If you want to think about what's happening on this other planet, etc. But I don't think that he would have been able, and nor should he have, found a complete end to Orion and the dark side threat and apocalypse and everything.
Right.
So I do feel like this is you know kind of the best he could do. Um, I don't know, look, the title of the story, Dark Side and Sons, right?
Right.
And so we get the revelation about Calabac. I don't know if that was going to be revealed when this story started, right? Maybe,
Hmm.
because it seems to have all been about Calabac. But I think it's hard to judge these two so harshly, uh, given the heartbreak that Jack had to be working through, um, and the pressure to find something he could live with, to finish them up. Uh, and you got Desaad, and we see the Black Racer again, who you know had not been seen in quite a while, um, except for his appearance in Lois Lane 115, uh, which had come out in the interim between
You
the
know,
two.
it is interesting. I'm looking at New Gods right now, and what you were saying about the title, Dark Side and Sons. I think it's really interesting that there are two splash pages. I wonder if these first three pages with Desaad escaping were added in once he knew it was over.
Could
You
be, but
know?
he's done that before.
Yeah, I
He's
know,
kind of
but
done that with it's like the preview, the
sure,
teaser for the cold open of a
sure.
episode. But yeah, I mean, it definitely could be.
Yeah. I mean, because yeah, it's like a double splash page with a double title. One of them is just the New Gods, but I mean,
Right.
uh,
Oh yeah, I mean,
uh
absolutely. I mean, if you look at it like that, um, he could have totally been on page, 7 or 8 here, or one, two, three, four, five, and then found out and was like, oh, well, I'm gonna need to put Calabac into this,
right,
and I, went back and did those 3 pages. Right.
right. Well, yeah, because Calabac doesn't even show up until there's no one for the first 7 pages. Nobody knows about Calabac.
Right. Well, except for
Well,
the teaser.
right, 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 right.
Right.
So really, that would have been one, two, three, four.
Yeah.
That would have only been 4 pages in. Anyway, I don't know. I mean, we're trying to suss out something that is impossible to suss out. Even if Jack was still with us, he probably wouldn't remember. Um, and but I mean, I don't know. I think that
But the art on this one is great.
the art is
Always.
always great art. I will say, I think that the ending, I think, like I said, there's palpable sadness here, but I also think knowing what's going to happen, and again, I know what's going to happen going forward in Mr. Miracle, which is a sort of a not to I don't want to get spoilery, but the book starts to feel a little schizophrenic in that it kind of just wants to be a regular superhero title and continue this story. But it's very clear that at some point Jack must have realized that the Forever People, even though they were canceling it, but he must have known that it was not. like there wasn't much place to go with it, right? And that any sort of long-term plan he might have had, and maybe he did, and maybe he didn't, to reintegrate the Forever People with the rest of the story was either not possible or not really relevant. Whereas when we finish with Orion here at the end of New Gods, I think he knows that he still has Mr. Miracle to bring some of this stuff back, right? We know about, the shared heritage that both Orion and Scott Free have. So that's a link to be able to bring all these characters back if he wants to.
Right.
And um and I don't know, but well, I mean, yeah, destiny shall end it. It is written that the father of apocalypse shall meet his banished son in the red light of the fire pits, and there they shall decide this war. And so it shall be. I can deny it no longer to other than myself. I am Darkseid's son, armed and ready with the heritage bequeathed me, the ultimate ferocity, and when I clash with Darkseid, the war will end. So
Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Um,
Popped up.
so I mean, there's a like he's sort of again pointing towards what ultimately that story he does for the reprints, uh, and then the Hunger Dogs, his two attempts to sort of wrap up the story, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think it's all very sad. I was very sad reading these because no matter what sort of uh limitations Jack ran into in himself and his process, he clearly had something he wanted to say, and it was, cut off at the knees. And I think you see a man trying to wrap up the series and still keep that idea viable. And it makes it messy and it makes it kind of a painful. And now I'm going to shut up because I talk too much.
No, I think you've got uh, um, one of the reasons I sit back and let you talk sometimes is like because you're not going through this the first time. I feel like sometimes you have the perspective on it that there are times where as much as I appreciate Kirby, as much as I appreciate what I'm looking at in these comics, I'm just so disappointed in the whole that like I'm like, how can I talk about this in a way that makes people want to read comics and read these comics? And that's an important thing for me. So sometimes I let you talk because you've got that wider angle lens on it than I do sometimes.
Well,
Um,
look, I mean, and Sean, you've read these before, right?
I've read Mr. Miracle. I haven't read
Oh, okay.
The Gods. I haven't.
Well, look, to answer your question, this is what I would say. And you guys can feel free to riff on this, but I mean, like, look, Jack Kirby is the king of comics. There are so many things about how comic book storytelling works and how a good comic book story is put together visually that he developed, championed, and made work, right? So no matter what faults there may have had, no matter how much his reach may have exceeded his grasp, uh, there are also, especially if you're a creator, if you are somebody who wants to be a comic book artist, you should be devouring these things, right? And if you just want to know what like an even I think an even better idea of what the imagination that co-created Marvel was really thinking about before it was put through the framework of the Stan Lee editorial style. These are great things. Although I would also say that in terms of Kirby's uh, post Stan Lee partnership output and his work at DC. I mean, like I'm always going to say my favorite is always going to be Kamandi,
Right.
and part of that is just because it doesn't have this weight of some sort of deeper meaning.
Well, I think it
Like,
also had a more specific structure.
sure. Well, I mean, it also, I mean, like, and and it was something like whether anybody wants to admit it or not was based on trying to losing losing the bid to get the rights to Planet of the Apes, right?
Right.
and
Right.
and that was uh but like it
Well,
also is just like a lot it's a lighter adventure book. It's like, Commande's moving around the post-apocalyptic world and things happen. And
Well, and
that's
that
okay in that framework. In this framework, you're like, why does it just seem like things are happening, right? Like,
like again, I'm in some ways beating the dead drum, but I think it's worth exploring. Um, the purpose of an editor in comics is to be that wide angle lens. The purpose of an editor in comics is to make you better, not constrain you. Um, and like, are there great ideas here? Obviously, because we have the Great Darkness Saga down the road. Um, there's so much that comes out of this in terms of the overall DC universe that it can't be denied. But at the same time, even as much as Kirby is king, um, working in a wider continuity, having interplay between books, having things that happened in issue one matter in issue 12 is really fucking hard.
sure. Look,
So in that sense, this is actually it's it's a cautionary and aspirational tale for comics creators as well. That like here we have the master of comics, and even in a thing that he did so many amazing things in, he shows how hard it is to make great comics. How much team effort can make a difference. How much? Go
I mean,
ahead.
I will caveat that. I think how hard it is to make comics that are trying to sell you a narrative that carries over
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
frankly,
like
making comics period is not easy, but yeah,
but
no, a
but
shared
yeah, because
universe
like
is
if you're the guy brought in to do an issue of Batman or whatever, uh it's pretty, I think that in a lot of ways, there's sort of like these are the givens of what a Batman story is. And you can just it's sort of like what I'm saying about Commandy. It's like, okay, this is what the tenets of the series are. And therefore I can just come up with a story that fits into
right.
that and that it doesn't really
Well,
matter
I mean, and
what
this is, I mean, and Kirby's doing it here, but you see it in other, there have been many attempts over my lifetime to make new shared universes, and some of them have had some great stuff in them, but none of them have managed. to stick. I mean, the closest is the Valiant universe, but it just gets rebooted every 10 years.
Well, I
It
mean,
hasn't stuck. It's stuck enough with deep enough roots to play with that they can always find creators willing to give it another round, and they can always find enough buyers to make it worth it for a while, but it has never become a player with Marvel or DC.
well, I mean, but that's also like when Valiant, I feel like this is getting kind of off the subject, but uh you got Jim Shooter
Mm-hmm.
building that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had like we can say whatever we want to say about Jim Shooter, but the man uh understood clarity of storytelling, clarity of artwork, clarity of narrative, right?
And he was
And
perhaps a better editor than a writer.
100%.
And that's what his primary role in Valiant was the editor.
Right. But I mean, it also, it also was like he also had a very specific. I love reading Shooters. I reread Shooters' blog every once in a while because I
Do
think
you?
it's fascinating.
Right.
Um, just that he had such a specific idea about how editorial should work, and for all of his problems working with Mort Weisinger, who sounds like a miserable bastard. Uh, he learned how to be an editor from Mort Weisinger, who was like, "No, you
Right.
will do it my way," right? And it's a fascinating, he's a fascinating figure, and I'm actually yes, I'm going to leave it at that. I find Jim Shooter a very fascinating figure,
I do
and
too.
um,
I'm sad that like we made a real push to have Jim Shooter on the show before he passed, and it
yeah,
never came to fruition.
right.
And that's something that I'm definitely sad about.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that, but there are he did. It's sad for you and your show that you didn't get him, but I mean, like he did some really great.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's like
No,
that's I can't. I think it might have been
there
Comic
is
Book
plenty to.
Historians
Yeah, that there
did like
there
a
there.
5 hour
I
interview with him. Yeah,
Yeah, I may or may not have been able to add anything to the conversation
I mean, yeah, I feel
between
like
his own
almost
writing and the conversations that he did have with other people.
Right.
the
There's a lot
real
out there.
the real question, the real interesting thing would be just be able to speak to, I mean, and you're never going to get John Byrne, right? But to have like John Byrne talk about his relationship with Shooter or uh, all of those guys who got their, uh, because sorry, this gets into a whole other thing. Marvel was swamped in writer editors
Yeah,
when Shooter took over, right? And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, but I mean and right or wrong, Shooter thought that was the wrong, and this does tie back into what we're talking about here because here we're dealing with a writer editor, right?
right.
That Shooter had this idea that no writer, like there had to be somebody in charge of saying, no, your script has to be in here and your art has to be in here and it has to look this way and it has to make sense, right? And you know, the thing is like, how would Kirby have functioned under that kind of a situation would have been really interesting. Like, if Kirby was still working for Marvel when Shooter came in and took over, doing Captain America and things, I, it might have been really interesting. Um, but which does make me think, to bring this back to Kirby. I was actually thinking about this morning before we got on. Is I was thinking about Kirby's, late 70s Marvel work when he came back, um, especially Captain America. Like that was probably my first exposure to Kirby artwork. and it disturbed the shit out of me. Well, I mean, the thing that I
Oh,
specifically remembered was in that Captain America story, Cap is blinded, and the way he drew his eyes when he was blinded freaked me the fuck out. I was just like, what is going on here? Why does it, because he actually drew it like his eyeballs had been removed, and I was like, that's fucking insane, I don't know. Somebody else talk.
I'm now thinking that we may need to discuss um before moving on to some other series where we do the I mean, we've talked about ABC Comics, but I'm kind of curious, and I would want Mark you to curate it because you're definitely among us, the Kirbyite, doing an episode or two of like some very directed post New Gods Kirby, um, to kind of get a feel. I mean, some Commandy, some Back to Marvel,
Sure.
um, maybe some Demon, to get a feel for what he learned, what he. I mean, and obviously this isn't like a guarantee of what he learned because we can't talk to him, but to be able to go, based on what we saw in the whole fourth world, you know, this
I
is how
mean,
Kirby seems to have
uh,
changed as an artist.
we
I
can
think
we
what he
could
learned was comics will break your heart.
yeah, that's
Well, yeah.
true. I mean, although I think that I mean, I think that and this, oh God, this is all stuff like this feels like something that should be the wrap up of the whole series. But I mean, like, I think that, that comics will break your heart thing. I often feel like I often feel like Jack had a very selective memory about a lot of things. I mean, he'd been in comics for since the 30s, right? He
Right.
he'd been an editor, he'd been a publisher. He and Joe Simon ran, mainline comics. They hired writers and artists, and maybe Joe was taking care of most of the business stuff, but certainly like there's a whole load of things, the idea of like, work for hire and all of those things. And look, we can talk about the ramifications of work for hire. Like that's a hours and hours conversation. But like it was the nature of the beast, right? It
Right.
was the nature of how the industry worked. Nobody, like we talk, like, and I made this point in my play, like artwork things, like
Hmm.
before like 1970, nobody got their artwork back. And like a lot of those artists didn't care and they didn't want it. They didn't know what to do with it, right? So, um, and it's that rise of, I think that, okay, so here we are. And now I'm going. So if you guys want to stop me, you better do it now.
No, no, I
Sean's
like
just
it.
Sean's just shaking his head and like, oh my God, whatever. But I mean, like here we are. Like this series is happening right as the Bronze Age is erupting, right? And I think the Bronze Age is when like fandom really starts happening, right? We have the first big comic convention is in the late 60s. I can't remember, like it's 66, I think, off the top of my head. San Diego Comic-Con, or at least the proto San Diego Comic-Con, starts in 71. Kirby starts going down there, right? And he starts going to the convention and interacting with the fans, right? And I think that suddenly things like the value of original artwork become apparent, and that for an industry that worked in one way for decades, suddenly there's a push to shift. And as we all know, big businesses, and like we're going to call comics big business, even though they really, in the grand scheme of things, weren't big business, right? Um, Change is always hard and
Hmm.
always incremental, right?
Hmm.
and it wasn't until yeah, but it all it feeds into all of this stuff. The fan stuff, it feeds into the new writers coming in. It feeds into the writers becoming writers editors because
Mhm.
they feel like they have more of niche audiences they're playing to. Um,
Well, I think it's also important to note that this is the era where um, certainly among the writers and more starting among the artists, you really kind of have that first generation of comics creators that grew up as comics
yeah, yeah,
fans and are doing
that's it.
comics because they want to do comics,
Right,
not because they'd like to write a novel and can't get that deal, not
right.
because they'd like to be an illustrator in some highbrow magazine and can't get that deal.
Not because they were writing pulp novels
Right,
for the pulp magazines and that it was just another revenue stream, you know?
right,
I mean, I
right.
think that all of those things are happening together, and I mean, it just changes the industry in a whole lot of ways. And the industry, in a lot of ways, is still sitting there going like, okay, well, we sell comic books on newsstands to 10-year-old kids, right? And really, the only person who seemed to really get that there was this other thing out there, we have to be honest, is Stan Lee. You know, he
Right.
was the one going to colleges and
Right.
interacting with people.
Well, and for that
Um,
matter, this is one of the places where Kirby is really important, where Will Eisner is really important, where Wally Wood is really important. They wanted to make comics.
Absolutely.
Right.
They cared about making comics. It wasn't
Hubert.
yeah, Cubert. It wasn't I mean most of the EC guys, and it really shows you how much those hearings wound up damaging the industry because like comic strips for a long time had been people who wanted to make comics. This
Sure.
this is what they wanted to do. Right.
Well, and
And,
people who made comic strips were also, you know, uh, celebrities,
right.
and they were incredibly well paid. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And comic books, particularly at EC, were just starting to have a hint of that.
mhm.
And then the whole thing blew up for a decade.
I mean, yes. I remember when we did the talk back with Jeff Trexler after Innocence of Seduction. I sort of postulated that if the hearings hadn't happened, would the industry have shifted away from superheroes even stronger? And I
I
don't know
mean, I
that
think you
that's
still might
true.
have had the Marvel era,
You might have, yeah, but I mean,
because I think I think the biggest thing is the industry never would have become kids stuff or strictly kids stuff again.
maybe, maybe not. I mean, I think things
I
go
mean,
in cycles.
it was 30 years before you had Vertigo. 40
Sure.
years before you had
Yeah.
Vertigo. Whereas
But
if
Well,
EC continues the way they are, Vertigo is exists, but it's part of a wider. I mean, I really think without the hearings, we have French comics.
I don't know.
yeah, I mean, the whole dichotomy between how Kniff and you know Chester Gould and all those guys were treated, Walt Kelly, it is fascinating, right? And I think it's because they were read by adults, and you know, they talked about how Gould got away with so much violence in Dick Tracy in the 50s, like ghoulish, terrible things, like the end of the brow, right?
Right,
Which was censored when they republished it in the 60s, right?
right. But they were also, I mean, they were read by adults who'd started reading them as kids. And that's what you never got with EC Comics, is the kids who had read the comics becoming adults with the comics still available.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I think that it's really hard to it's really hard to like estimate genre changes. I
Yeah,
think that I think that um and it also is really what's that I always loved the public taste changes so rapidly. There's a great line in Working Girl, that movie from the late 80s.
right,
No one ever got rich underestimating what the American public was willing to taste, you know?
right.
And uh it I mean, I think that there would have been I think there would have been some, I think there would be more crime and horror comics going forward if there wasn't the hearings, or
I mean, mostly I was just thinking
or
about the
if,
number of great artists that would have continued doing comics. I mean, how much do we see consistently from the EC artists in the decades after the
well, I mean,
hearings?
they were
Don't
around.
they were around, but they
They
weren't your
moved on.
primary guys anymore.
Yeah,
Jack Davis, got into commercial illustration.
sure.
Right.
Um,
But I always felt like that was where Jack Davis was headed anyway. I think that, you know, he expressed some real reservations about those books.
Right.
Uh,
And
I mean, like
but
it
I still feel like that you never got the group of kids who grew up on EC Comics becoming comics creators the same way.
No, they all wrote books about EC Comics.
Right. Um you you
Uh,
you don't have the
where they
the
became filmmakers and
right.
novelists.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, John Carpenter and all those guys. I don't know. I mean, I think that
I mean, I can't predict exactly how it would have gone, but I think not only
well,
did it make the industry um way more superhero centric, but it like
yeah. Well, I think it also
it
spawned the
it,
underground comics too.
it did.
Because a lot, like you would talk
Oh
about
yeah.
you talk about people being inspired by
Oh
EC and
yeah,
then
no,
making
that's
comics. I
true.
mean, you got like R. Crumb
Raw
and
and Weirdo and yeah, oh
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. It inspired the underground comics. The
right.
underground and for that matter, in terms of where EC artists went, that's one of the places.
Yeah. No, I think that
Dennis Kitchen would go find them and get them to work again.
but I mean, I think that, like we were talking about um there was the one issue of oh God, what was it? Was it Mr. Miracle where there was the planet of the with the vampires and the horror movie
Yeah,
stuff, and how I felt like Kirby's artwork didn't really lend itself to that kind of atmospheric thing. Kirby has atmosphere.
Right.
I'm not trying like the Kirby atmosphere didn't necessarily make me think, ooh, vampires and ghoulies. And the thing is like, I think that's why, uh, like, you didn't see Kirby drawing for EC,
Right.
you didn't see like he's bouncing around, but he's still like, I think Kirby knew what his thing was. His
Hmm.
thing was like sci-fi, like Sky Master, Sky Masters, that the newspaper strip that he tried to do, and then going back to DC and doing like not the Suicide Squad, um, oh my God, I think my brain is going. Anyway,
challenges of the
but
unknown.
Challengers the Unknown. There we go. Thank God. Thank you. Uh, um, because I mean, again, that was his bailiwick. That was his place. I mean, I think he could have done those EC science fiction books, uh, but I don't know. I don't know that he would have wanted to work under the constraints that those books had.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think he would have wanted.
but I
to get
also
handed a
think that
page that already had all the word balloons on it.
right, but like very few of them were doing it as well. But when EC succeeded at something, other companies followed. I don't
Sure,
know
sure.
that you would ever seen Jack Kirby work at EC, but
Well,
you would have um uh, you
and
would
we
have
know,
gotten to see him do more of the work that he wanted to do, that he clearly
I,
wanted to do.
I, what I mean, what do you like? I know Joe Simon and Joe Simon did like Black Magic, and they did some
Well, I'm just
horror
looking at like the
books.
sci-fi stuff that he puts into this, that he puts
Hmm.
into the Fantastic Four, that he puts into, and
Sure.
I think in Kirby's perfect world, he'd be doing the sci-fi without the superheroes,
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I think,
or
but
with
one of the,
way less of the superhero element.
yeah, but at the same time, like everything turns into superheroes with Jack.
That's true.
Orion isn't technically a superhero, but he's a superhero, right? I mean, and
Right.
I think that, you know, uh, I mean, we haven't even talked about Mr. Miracle yet, but which I think Sean wants to talk about.
Well, we should definitely get to it because it was interesting, and
Um,
I was thinking about it when you talked about how Mr. America gets kind of schizophrenic going forward. Because I think
right.
to me that started with this issue.
And I would say that's probably true is very true. But I think
Yeah.
that
No, no, I'm not in any hurry. I mean, it was not my favorite issue of Mr. Miracle.
well, it wasn't mine either, but I mean, I think
It
there's
has all the
I,
tropes that make the worst Mr. Miracle stories.
yeah, yeah. And as Tad will see as we move forward, and you've read Mr. Miracle, it starts to be like, oh, how about this thing? And how about this thing? And how about this thing? And it's like, okay. Um, but
This is where I just remind myself that eventually Mr. Miracle was put in Tom King's hands, and so there was something there.
I think anyway,
I
I
think
mean,
Mr.
it's
Miracle
the
was
type of thing.
great fun in the 80s.
Right. It's the
Um,
type of thing that I like that I know I say a lot about Stan Lee is like, look, I have trouble listing him among the great writers, which doesn't mean that I don't think he's one of the most important ones.
I think the most important thing about Mr. Miracle for me, who had a couple of the originals as a kid, hand-me-downs,
sure.
and it was looking at them, reading them kind of, but mainly looking at them and then playing, imagining you're an escape artist and sort
Hmm.
of stuff. You know, that was my, 6 or 7 year old self, reading those again, handed me down. And so I think and maybe, that's what Jack wanted, was some kids playing Mr. Miracle.
Sure. I mean, I 100% think that's what it was. But, and then I think we talked about this last month. Boy, it wouldn't have been like I sort of yearn for some actual sense of how the escapes work other than hand wavium. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think that when we talk about this particular issue, like that last Dr. Bedlam story was so awesome, where he
Yeah.
was in the building, and had to get down, had to get to the had to get to the main floor. Like that was awesome. And this just feels like, okay, well, I'll bring back Dr. Bedlam. And he's got a UFO. Okay, he's got a flying saucer. Okay, all right. Um, I
But
did
again,
want
he
to
plays
say,
by all the rules, right?
yeah, yeah.
They all play by the rules.
I did want to this is one of my favorite moments of whacked out Kirby anatomy is in the final panel of page 11 when Scott is like walking out the door and turns around and his face is his right eye is there you go, Sean. Sean's doing military presses with his
with my
Fourth World
omnibus.
Omnibus.
You know,
Page 11.
Page 11. It's it it's
The
he
last
has
panel?
yeah, the last panel where he has two eyes that are like one is like three times the size of the other one.
Oh, right.
I mean, and the thing is like that's Jack, right? Jack,
Perspective.
it that's not perspective. But I mean, like Jack's about energies and about anatomy or you know, it's Kirby anatomy and that's not real. It's not reality, and he wasn't concerned with reality. You know, that's if you want reality, you go to Neil Adams. And I mean, and I I've said this before. I'm like a broken record. I also like I also spend a lot of time thinking about that you know, Danny O'Neill and Neil Adams Hard Traveling Heroes run came out before these. So there is a dynamic shift in storytelling and artwork that happens that Jack just doesn't that's not Jack's thing, right? Like Jack can't do hard traveling heroes, right? He can't do that. That's not his thing. He's very much in that sort of uh, it's all very golden age as far as I'm concerned. Like
Yeah.
that's where he learned storytelling, that's where he learned character creation, and that's where he lives, and that's where his joy is. But again, talking about this shift in the Bronze Age and these new, maybe more adult, more older, a little more critical fan base that's coming out. Like obviously, there's the Kirby disciples who apparently were all at San Diego during the first 3 years of.
That's the worst gang on the streets of San Diego, the Kirby Disciples.
Yep, yeah,
what
they're
about the Kirby
always there.
They're
Crips?
dangerous.
They come around and they start hitting you with their mother boxes.
Yeah.
Which
But
version? The little one like Scott Free or the big one like the Forever People?
hey, man, they're
Or,
all the mother box.
I mean, to me,
Don't
this
don't be
was
don't be don't be box shaming the mother boxes.
so what was your term? The make it up him, or what was your
A hand wavium.
hand wavium?
Yeah,
So to me, this really stuck in my craw because the mother box is basically like Doctor Who's sonic screwdriver with sentient.
right.
Mm-hmm.
It can do anything. And when in the beginning of the issue you tell me, "Oh no, the mother box is broken,"
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
expecting to see some actual tape
Escapism?
artist daring to do.
Oh.
I'm not I'm not satisfied that, oh, I didn't tell you. I I put
I
another
built a new
block.
one.
Into my mask.
Right.
So now I don't actually have to have the mother box. Like now, and I'm okay that mother box technology can be adapted to all sorts of different things.
Right.
That's fine. Like, they were those things where they would always show him having a thing on his arm, right? That was under his costume. All right, so it's skin,
Yeah.
it's like so small it just is you can't see it under the costume. Great, fine. Superhero hand wavium. That's great. But I mean, it's and it's part of I think it's part of that golden age mentality that I was talking about with Kirby. Like that it it I like whatever we need to finish the story and not and sometimes it undercuts the drama of it, you know? Go
You
ahead.
know,
Sean's laughing.
quite honestly, this reminds me when I talked about how, as a kid, you would play these things, you would just get ideas. And it's totally something a kid would do when, like, you shoot, you know, I don't know if you guys played, cops and robbers and
Sure.
Indians and everything, but you got shot. It's like, oh no, I had on
My force field.
impermeable,
Yeah.
steel underneath my serape.
Or
Right,
or,
right.
or like one of the
So it does follow that logic.
A hundred percent.
as a parent, one of the coolest scenes in a mediocre movie ever is in Big Daddy when they're playing cards and and it always finishes with I win. What is this game? What are the rules? What is the name of this game? I win. So you
Well,
always
yeah.
win? That's right. I win.
Well, I mean, and like when you're a kid, you like you're playing some game and you're like, okay, I'm gonna say we can do this because then I can win, and then somebody else does it, and you're like, wait, wait, no, 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 wait a
No,
minute.
it's like yeah,
You know,
it's like Calvin Ball.
yeah. I mean,
The mother box in the this would be a great question to ask Bill Watterson. Did the mother box influence Calvin Ball?
well, and the thing is this is sort of part of the truth of like the Kirbyites have this narrative that if the direct market had existed when these books came out, they would have been huge hits. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't
But,
know if they would have made it as far as they made it.
well, but here's the deal is Kirby is imagining just like Kirby is imagining 10-year-old kids going up to a newsstand and wanting to give them something that's spectacular. And the same time trying to tell this story that has some sort of mythic relevance, right? And it takes some real storytelling skill. And I don't even mean like visual storytelling. I'm talking about like what you're talking about, Tad, editorial skill
Hmm.
to put those two things together and make them work,
I
right?
mean, I think the biggest argument against the idea that things would be great if um or have been great for Kirby if the direct market existed is list the people who have succeeded going from Marvel or DC to independent books and how many of them are writers versus how many of them are artists. With the exception of the Image Revolution, which frankly was short-lived and like revitalized itself with J. Michael Straczynski and then Robert Kirkman and then
What
Saga.
actually
um,
was funny, just this morning while I was doing laundry, I watched a video that some guy had made about Eric Larson and how Savage Dragon had sort of evolved from this sort of like slam bam action thing into kind of a sex book, right? And and he was talking about like it, he invoked Kirby and and I think in a way Eric Larson kind of represents like a much more differently in like he's a kind of a Kirby that A is more adult, obviously, but also like at some point identified the fact that though I'm not looking for kids to pick up this book, right?
mhm.
But I'm still gonna work in this milieu that I loved as a kid, with superhero shit, right? And and maybe like I've now just somehow backed into kind of identifying my problem with these books, um, my struggles with these books. I don't really have a problem with these books.
No, I don't
Is
either, but
that
I do struggle with them. Yeah, that's a good
they
way of putting
are
it.
they are trapped between trying to tell something more adult and appeasing a kid, right?
Right.
And there are, I mean, I know how you feel about Stan Lee's writing, but Stan Lee somehow was able to do both
Often.
with aplomb, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and like going along with that, like I like that you said appeasing a kid rather than appeasing the comics code, because I do think that there are elements where he's appeasing the comic code, but I think what's evident a lot, what the mother box represents is Jack underestimating the ability of kids to understand and be excited by complex things.
Well, I mean,
I think
I
he
I
writes down to kids.
I think that I don't think that the mother box is necessarily the problem. I think the mother
I don't
box is
think
sort of
it's
a I think it's a complex sort of idea what the mother
right,
box is. I think that it's just like Jack gets into a corner story wise and then just comes up with a an easy way out that
right,
often involves the mother box. But
Right.
that like the fact that Scott has a mother box that he can use to do all sorts of interesting things, it's like Sean's
I
absolutely right. With Doctor Who, the
right,
sonic screwdriver isn't necessarily the problem. It's that the sonic screwdriver always is the solution, right?
right.
Right.
No, no, no.
And
I mean it's emblematic of the bigger problem,
sure,
which is that he doesn't think kids will care. He doesn't think that kids will care that he's hand waving all of this stuff.
right.
He doesn't think highly enough of their intellect to think that he
Well,
needs to.
I don't.
I'm just imagining young Annie Wilkes picking up a Jack Kirby comic and saying, "That's not what happened last month."
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Annie
That's
Wilkes
very
from
true.
Stephen King's Misery,
Right.
Right.
one of her
That's
things.
that's a very good thing. I mean, like, look, I don't
And
think that he
and
thinks I think I take some task with you saying that he doesn't think enough of their intellect or whatever. Because I think I think that Jack thinks I think Jack thinks he thinks like a kid. And in a
that I
way he
believe.
does. And I
I,
think that it's just there's a new exciting thing, new exciting
right.
thing, new exciting thing. And it's I think it's part of the problem with mythology with all of this too, is that I think he kept reading stuff and being like, oh, I can filter that into it, you know.
Right. And
He
and
reads
I
hot,
I
you know.
do want to emphasize that Jack I think neglects the intellect and wonder of children more than he thinks less of it. There are way more examples, particularly of this era, where people are very much writing down to kids.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I don't think Jack as deliberately writes down to kids as much as doesn't consider how much they may be paying attention, how much they may be thinking along with the characters. Um, Allows himself to hand wave without thinking about whether or not his audience will be okay with that. Um, because he assumes that if he's okay with that, his audience will be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, I just like the whole thing is so complicated to me, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because like I think that it's so and it is one of those things where you just want to you wish you could talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
right? You wish you could just have that conversation and be like, look, Jack, I don't need you to remember every single panel of every page, but I mean, like, what what did you what were you trying to accomplish? What was the
Right.
what, you know, were you trying to create this mythological story that might appeal to a older audience, or were you trying to make uh, flashy, simple like one and done stories that an 8-year-old that walked up to the newsstand would get. Because and it's I don't believe that DC was hiding sales numbers to get rid of Jack because A, they canceled these books, but they didn't like fire him. They gave
Right.
him other books to work on.
Right.
They and like who the hell doesn't want to sell books? Like if the books are selling, why would you say, oh, okay, well,
Right.
the books are
No,
selling, but let's just
no.
stop. But
Well,
go ahead.
I think, Jack wanted to be an editor, right? The other part, when I read about, how he found out
Yeah.
halfway through uh, those first two we talked about this week, it was a two-part conversation. The other part of the conversation was we love Demon and Commandy, and we don't want you to leave the books.
Hmm.
So he was taking off the books that he wanted to write and given the two books that he had planned to hand off to someone else, right?
That's an interesting
See,
question on the side, though, that we'll come back to because Mark has a point. But
I
why was
think
Jack never really an editor?
I think maybe we can see why. I mean, look, one of the things that I read about, and I know Mark Evanier was there, but every once in a while, I think I'm gonna say something really kind of vaguely like it's gonna piss somebody off, and I don't really like to piss
Look,
people off.
I'm going to remind you, my mom and brother don't piss off easily, or John
You
or
know,
Britt. They're all
but
pretty
here's the other thing
loyal.
is like someday somebody's gonna revisit all of these. You know that,
That's
right?
true.
Um, but
Someday, when I'm
um,
awfully low.
but uh, that Kirby wanted to start these books and then hand them off
Yeah.
and then go start something else. That like he did want to be like in charge of a line of books. Probably. I'm sure that part of that was to prove to Stan and Joe Simon that he could do that too. But I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it's just such a and
because yeah.
I have the advantage of having lived through Vertigo and some of the other lines that were started more by editors than by it just feels like such a weird way to I want to start a line of books. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to start out by doing everything myself
Right.
and then find a point to pass it off. You would think that if that's what he really wanted to do, he'd want to have writers co-scripting with him from day one. He'd want to
Well,
have the inker that could take over penciling. He'd want to have
I mean, I
the
think that
best
I think
talent that he could pull to him and work as a team.
right.
Um, and I wonder how different this could have been if that had been. I mean, because again,
Well,
Jack clearly has amazing ideas that. I mean, I'm going to say it again. I think are hurt as much by lack of sleep as anything else.
I mean, and the thing is like he has Evanier and Steve Sherman, right?
Right.
Uh, they're there, like they're ready. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that he was grooming them to be creatives,
Right.
right? And I think that both certainly Mark Evanier would say that his whatever talent he has was fostered and encouraged by Jack. But the real question is like I don't know. I mean, like I'm utterly fascinated. Like, and I guess since we've reached the point where most of this line of books, this Fourth World books, have now been canceled. We've gotten to the
Right.
last issue. Now, like, why we're in a period where almost all sales are newsstand sales, right? Why are they not selling? Like Jack Kirby artwork just a few years before on Marvel books is selling books.
Hmm.
He's drawn covers that sell, that people go and they buy them off the thing. You know, they buy them off the newsstand. And I ask myself, did even the kids back then look at these covers and think, oh, they're just trying to be Marvel, you know? And because the imagery still works 100%, but the cover blurbs and stuff, you know, they do lack that sort of like, you know,
Right.
Kirby says buy it. Kirby says buy it, right? You know, and it's like uh I also wonder about things like this, right? I don't think Stan Lee would ever say, Stan Lee says buy it.
Right.
He'd say, Marvel says buy it.
Right.
Marvel says, you know. And I think that and I don't think we can remove the ego thing.
Yeah.
Why did Jack do all of this? Because Jack had things to prove. He
Right.
had like never, I don't want to say this and be wrong about it, but I think I'm right. I don't think that he'd ever had a huge hit where he didn't work with someone else.
Right.
He had Joe Simon, had Stan Lee, uh, like the Sky Masters. He was working with Wally Wood. I mean, like everything was Jack and somebody else, Jack and somebody. And I think that he needed to have something that was his and that
Right.
was only him. And then he could say, that was a huge hit because of me, because I did it. And boy, I like anybody who's a creative can understand that.
Yeah.
Anybody. And,
Definitely.
but, I don't know. I mean, like, and I think that part of my sadness about these three books in particular, and knowing that that's what he when he found out that it was sort of done, right? And the thing is like we have a bunch more to read, but in a way, this month is the end of this fourth world experiment, really. At this
Right.
point, we're it's the dregs, and then it's trying to find an ending. And
Right.
um it's like it's just sad because I know how much doing it all himself meant to him.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hazard to guess that if he thought he could do it fast enough, he probably wanted to ink them too, you know?
Right.
And but like you can't do 4 books a month or 5 books a month
Right.
if you're penciling and inking
And
and
trying to write them well.
Right.
try one. You know, but I also think it
I mean, that doesn't
I
take
mean,
no time.
I've probably invoked this as well at some point during this series. But I mean, it's like there's this quote from Eddie Van Halen where, you know, he was like, "Look, when I write music, I just write what I like, and I'm egotistical enough to think that other people will like it. And I don't care what's sung over it." Right? Like he didn't care what David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar came up with as lyrics. He didn't care. To me, it was just to him, it was just gilding the lily of his music, right? And
Right.
I think that Jack truly believed that about his art. I mean, and in a way,
Well, and
like
that
he,
makes me wish he'd done. less words, more silence.
Yeah.
Let the art speak for itself.
Well, you're gonna enjoy Hunger Dogs a lot then.
Okay. I'm looking forward to
Uh,
it.
well, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna enjoy it a lot, but it definitely has less dialogue. And I
Uh,
think
uh,
that is also a shift towards the 80s where
right.
there was a different style of writing that was had developed.
I mean,
But uh
if the art's supposed to speak for itself, you should let it.
well, I mean, and it's just
And
like
that's another place
we've
where a good editor and time makes a difference. Because you're right.
sure.
This is in an era of, I mean, my biggest problem anytime that I go back and reread Secret Wars is I'm like, Jim, just shut up. Every one of these
But
balloons could be cut in a quarter and you could still get all of the information out.
but it has to be clear. I mean, yeah, I think yeah. Um, but I mean, in it, we've invoked Lucas at various times during this, like, but it's also Lucas, like he said that, like the dialogue's terrible. I know that, but it's
Right.
also not important.
Right.
It's the imagery, it's the movement, it's the music, it's all of that.
And I
That's what
think
makes the
I
story
think
exciting.
I think where he proved himself wrong on that was Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones that I think could have been improved immensely with with just some basic dialogue rewrites.
Oh, I mean, I don't, I don't have so much a problem with Phantom Menace, but the the love scenes with Anakin and Padme in
Oh, that's where he proved that having a different director would have been worthwhile. I mean, again, what frustrates me the most about the prequels is like he didn't direct or write Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It's like he learned that lesson, and they are better than Star Wars. Star Wars is necessary for Empire and Jedi, but like I think those movies are better. And
I
Mark's shaking
just
his head, so we've got
Jedi is
an
not better
argument
than
there.
Star Wars. Jedi is
Okay,
not
see, I
better
was three, so
I
I
than
love
Revenge of
I
the
the
Sith.
Ewoks. So
I
I don't know
would
that Jedi is better than Phantom Menace, honestly.
yeah. I think that
you guys are
the
ruining
best
my
parts
childhood right now.
the best parts of Return of the Jedi are possibly some of the best parts of that first trilogy, but
Right.
that's the confrontation between Luke and Vader,
Yep.
and the Emperor. That stuff is great. But look,
You slammed the Ewoks.
I,
But the
I don't
Irvin
slam
Kershner,
the
I mean, it is kind of undeniable that Empire Strikes Back just has it.
Right.
yeah. Well, there's a narrative thing there.
Right.
But I will tell you this. Empire Strikes Back doesn't work without Star Wars.
Right.
No.
And when I feel this so often, I wish there was nothing but the original Star Wars. I will give up Empire Strikes Back. I will give up Return of the Jedi. I will give up uh, Andor, any of that stuff that everybody loves, Mandalorian, which I enjoy a lot. I would give it all up if we could go back in time and have Star Wars be a thing that stood on its own, and that was the end of it. I think that it would actually have a greater uh, artistic impact. I think it would. I think uh, that it might have changed Lucas's career in immeasurable ways. I think that I would just rather have had that. I would rather have just had one Star Wars movie, period, end of story, full stop.
I'd have to ponder that. Do I still get my toys?
You would have probably, I mean, like they would have probably had toys for a year or two. I think we would have been better off if there had only been toys for a year or two.
Well, but then the toys would have been done before I was born.
Sorry. I would have had mine.
My Death Star, my Millennium Falcon.
Well, who knows what you would have
Yeah.
had then? I mean, like,
Right.
I mean, like
No,
there
I
there's a
think that's
whole load of
I think
there's a
that's
whole load of yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a better thing to ponder than any of the people that like would like to excise one movie or one series or blah blah blah. I think an all or nothing is a much better question.
I've
Um,
never hated anything with Star Wars on it
Neither have I.
ever.
And that includes the
Even the
Ewok
holiday
movies.
special.
I like the holiday special. Mhm.
I can't say I like it, but I don't hate it. I chuckle through it.
Yeah,
I cringe through it,
yeah.
but but there
The
I
music
think
was done by a like legit. I always forget his name.
but I
Who
mean I think that Marauder Miko, what was his name?
Oh
The
no,
one who
that was
did
just
the
for I meant for the overall special.
Oh, I know. I know what
Um,
you mean. I don't remember who did it, but I will say, um, I just think that culturally it would put us in a better spot too, because it might have, it still probably would have spawned a bunch of imitators, but this idea of everything having to be a long line of sequels
Yeah.
might have been might have been avoided. Um, and the thing is like uh, even if like what my second thing would be to take that episode 4 off of it and just have
yeah.
it be Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, the Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi, and then end it, you know. And I know both Sean and I have things about the prequels that we do really love. And I think as a trilogy, it tells a very interesting story and it does it pretty damn well. But that doesn't blind me to weaknesses of it. But I do think, I mean, like, but I think this is the big thing, is like I think that the fact that this long recurring storyline damaged pop culture in a lot of ways. That I think because like certain things that happened before we had you had the Universal monsters and things like that that kept coming back, but it never felt like, oh, this is episode 5 of the
Right.
Universal monsters story. It was just like, oh, okay, it's the vampire meets the wolf, Dracula meets the wolf man. Hey, whatever, and it's like it was a point that I made recently when I saw that that new Avatar movie had passed $1 billion, which I never thought I'd saw that again. And I realized there were several others that did, but I just haven't been paying attention. It's like there is a certain amount of like, I mean, I went and saw that movie yesterday and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I mean, like it's not my favorite franchise or anything like that, but it's also like it almost inherently is just like, all right, here we are again. We're on Pandora. This is the next thing that happens. Okay. It feels there's a very breeziness to it, and I think that's part of why people think it doesn't have any cultural impact. Like it's not like you don't feel like somebody is going like this is important, And this I'm being very long-winded here, but that's part of my wish is that Star Wars was a contained thing that just was, and I think that part of our real big problem in
Well,
pop
and
culture is that everything has to be a franchise, and I don't think it
where
needs to be
I
a.
think we could pull this around and back is um I think there could have been a really great fourth world graphic novel.
Sure, 100%. Or, like I said earlier, like a 12 issue miniseries,
Right.
New Gods miniseries that covered all of this,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's in 1971, neither of those things actually exist.
Right.
I mean, graphic novels exist, but not to Marvel or DC. Um, but here we are, and I guess next month we have. I guess we're probably. I think we're winding down, don't you?
We are. We've got it lined up for 3 more months, with next month being
Like three
12,
issues.
12 to 15 of Mr. Miracle, and then 16 to 18 of Mr. Miracle, along with the New Gods #6 second story from the reprint series, and then the
Mhm.
Hunger Dogs in April to wrap up
And then we
our
can all know that we have conquered the fourth world.
um
The Armageddon.
so there
I would just say this actually turned into a really great conversation in my mind. I don't
I
know how you
Oh,
guys
agree.
feel.
They
yeah.
always do.
Yeah.
Um wasn't don't I feel like, I mean, DeMatteis did Forever People. Um there was a Cosmic Odyssey. Didn't I feel like, yeah, didn't yeah, John Byrne did a Fourth World
I
series, didn't he?
I think he did, yes.
Have either of you read
Uh,
it?
I don't
no.
recall it.
Okay.
I don't think it lasted very long.
Well, but I
I
don't
think that
I
was
I don't think it was designed to. I think it was more the decision to do the miniseries. That's one of the reasons I'm
might be.
curious.
Well,
Um,
like, look, there's a lot of people who took these ideas and did really interesting things with them. And that speaks to, you know, would it have been better to hand it to have Jack say, okay, here's my idea. It's what do you think? Um, in my play, I have Carmine Infantino suggest Denny O'Neil. I don't know that that happened, but I know that Denny O'Neil wrote them later, right? So
right.
that's why I invoked that. But just there were people writing at that time who somehow, like, Jesus Christ, like we were talking about Jim Shooter earlier, like look at look at Legion of Superheroes. He like somehow made those characters feel real to young people. Granted, he was like 13, right? He's
Right.
a 13-year-old writing the book, but he also like understood the value of having narratives that carried through the whole series. And would that have helped? I mean, like at this point, I think Shooter is out of the industry. I think he's managing a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Pittsburgh right now. But uh, I mean, like that kind of mindset, some youthful energy, right? I wonder. It does make me think about that. What if he just said to Mark Evanier, "Hey, why don't you write the dialogue?"
Right.
What would have happened? You know.
Hmm.
But I
I
mean, I
mean,
think that goes to how beholden Evanier feels to Jack, and would Evanier have been willing or able to be
right.
like, I think it would be better this
No,
way,
I mean,
you know?
the only reason I even the burn thing popped into my head is, like, I think of the way I look at Bendis and um is it Buckingham who did the original art on Ultimate Spider-Man?
Oh, Bagley, Mark Bagley.
Bagley, yeah.
Hmm.
Bendis and Bagley on Ultimate Spider-Man, and for that matter, I think of Byrne on Man of Steel. Um, there have been times in history where a a muddy thing that had a lot of greatness in it was taken and
And refined, yeah.
refined. So I almost wonder if that's what Byrne did with his New
It's
Gods
hard to
run,
know.
and
I
I
mean, I
and I
think
don't know. I
that
haven't looked at it. I haven't.
I it's sort of like Burns FF run, which that's my childhood in a lot of
Oh
ways.
yeah, I love Burns FF.
And it's I think it's really good, but I also think it's sort of a lot of just keeping the formula right, you know,
Right,
rather than like, and obviously there are things that happen editorially, you know, keeping Ben on the Battle World
Right.
right.
and bringing the She-Hulk into that team, which
Right.
let's be honest, that's the best thing that ever happened to the character of She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I think that changed that character immeasurably and for the better going forward.
Was Burns sensational She-Hulk before or after that? It was after that, wasn't it?
It was after
Yeah.
he became the caretaker of that character for a long time
Right.
because
Yeah.
there was the Savage She-Hulk,
Right.
and then that ended, and then she
That
just
I think was a
became
four-issue miniseries to begin with.
No, no, that was like a 21 issue series.
yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
But I mean it was pretty meandering if I remember correctly. Um, and then she became an Avenger to keep
Right.
her around, right? I know Sean's the Hulk guy, so
Well, I mean, she was started, I mean, she and Spider-Woman both were created
right,
to keep CBS from creating
100%.
female Hulks and Spider-Man.
Right.
Um,
That's a given, right? In my mind.
but
Not to
yeah, Savage She-Hulk ran for a little over 2 years or so. And then, she went to the Avengers and then Secret Wars, FF.
Mhm. I mean, and I know that when she went to the Avengers, there was a pretty that there was a change in personality that I think Byrne expanded on. But I mean, like,
It's a very interesting, you know, she's so different from Bruce in that she revels in the power,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, she has more control.
Mhm.
Um, although a few years ago they did a series where she was Savage, where she was
Right.
raging as well. And I have a friend of mine, Jerome, who probably isn't listening, but um, Jerome loves She-Hulk, and he hated that series.
Hmm.
He's like, that's not who she is. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean, but yeah, sorry, now we're talking about John Byrne.
yeah.
Um, don't don't go to Burn Robotics. I don't even think that message board is active anymore. I don't think, but man,
I don't know, but did you see, and this is the last thing I'll say about John Byrne because I'm kind of fascinated anytime something like this happens. He had been um continuing his X-Men stuff after
right?
leaving the book. It's getting Elsewhen, X-Men Elsewhen is
Yeah.
being published by Abrams Books
Oh,
starting in June of this year.
I you know, yeah. Well, Mr. Byrne has a lot of strong opinions about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um,
oh,
although Byrne apparently, like when he was at DC, I think he hit a lot of those Kirby things because he did a Demon book too. I know that because I have a piece of original artwork right up here on my right. So I don't
Well,
know.
I
I
just
think I know he's a huge Kirby fan. That's all I know. So
I am always a little bit fascinated. Kind of like DC last year, I think it was last year, um, did the four-issue series that would have been the four issues if Jason Todd had lived. I
mhm.
am kind of fascinated sometimes when they rather than the full-on Elseworlds or What If book, you have we're going to take from this point and show you a different vision.
Well, yeah. I mean, and they had those pages, obviously. Because I
Right.
mean, I've seen the Jim Aparo page where he's,
Mhm.
he's alive. Um,
Right.
I don't, I don't know. I think that it's interesting, uh, but for myself, I am so tired of multiple timelines and multiple universes, and when it works, it's great. But a lot of
Well, and
times
that
it's just flooding the market with more
absolutely. And
stuff.
that's why I'm honestly way more interested in something like this, where it's
Mhm.
not a story driven multiple universe, multiple timeline. It's
Hmm.
a there was a creative decision made completely outside of universe, but this is what somebody else did
Right.
who
Well,
was very much, it's fan fiction only from one of the creators
right.
rather than
Although, there is one element that's very much missing from that.
Claremont.
Claremont, yeah.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, like,
I mean, I don't know enough of my
uh,
X-Men history to know how much of a split there was between Claremont and Byrne at that time, but it seems that if Byrne felt the need to carry on, that like there was some sort of creative differences breakup.
I don't really know the truth either, but
Right.
like when I think of when I think of the creator that made the X-Men,
You think of Claremont?
I think of Claremont.
No,
I
absolutely. Just like the first people. I mean, and this is again where we'll bring it back to Kirby and the greater question of yes, artists deserve way more credit than they get.
right.
Is the answer, but the question is like how much credit do artists wind up getting, et cetera? Because like
Hmm.
when you talk about the early X-Men years, that was Claremont Byrne for a long time. People think of Stan Lee when they think of Spider-Man, when they think of Fantastic Four. They don't think Ditko and Kirby the same way they think of Stan Lee.
Well,
Um, and that's
but
not entirely fair, but in both cases, like it's fascinating to look at. Okay, they want to go prove that it's just them or that they did, what happens then?
Right.
I will say this. I picked up the first Epic collection because I hadn't read it in years, right? So it was the 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 first collected new X-Men,
Right.
right? And
Was
you
that
know,
Grant Morrison?
no, this
No, no,
is the
okay.
ones from this. This is the
Oh, Len
the
Wein and
Len
Okay.
Wein
Okay.
doing giant size
Right,
X-Men
right,
number
right, right,
one.
right.
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 And then if I'm remembering correctly, Claremont takes over
Pretty
like right
quickly.
away,
Right.
right? And I was sort of shocked how long Dave Cockrum
Yeah.
was
Was
there
on the book.
before Byrne came in.
That's true.
And just it sort of surprised me because I always thought, oh, it's Claremont Byrne, but
Right.
man, Cockrum was there quite a while. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like
Well, and
over a
wasn't it
year.
Cockrum with wine as well?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Cochran did
Cockrum actually
he,
predates.
yeah. Cockrum designed all those characters for Giant
Mhm.
Size X-Men number one. So, uh, but yeah, I mean, like yeah, I don't know. I don't really want
That
to get
I mean,
into a
that's
John Byrne thing.
no, no, absolutely not. Though that is like Kirby and Fourth World, like the Claremont X-Men years is one of the bigger holes in my comics knowledge. At some point, I need to give them a more serious read.
Well, and in a lot of ways, it has some of the same frustrations, but because like there's a lot of like subplots that like disappear for like 2 years, And
Right.
then, but then they do reappear, and you're like, oh, whoa, well, you
Sometimes, I
know,
mean, I've heard both Byrne and Claremont talk about things that they would throw in and think that they were going to do something with, and then never actually manage to do anything
well,
with.
yeah, I mean, and that happened. I mean, that happens with storytelling all the time, where
Right.
you're like, oh, this will lead to something, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe it doesn't.
But if you're
These
not
other things
publishing on a
work.
monthly schedule, you'll probably edit it out.
Sure. Well, yeah, that's true enough. But I mean, like, but that's the joy. That's part of the joy of being on a monthly
It is.
schedule
It
is that
is.
you're sort of sowing seeds to to spark something later. And if it doesn't spark, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Got something
Right.
else. We got the brood over here. We got the shy R. We got the,
Right.
and I don't.
Are they the Shiar? I've always thought them as the Shiar.
I always read it as shy R, but
I'm just trying to figure out if anybody's heard it pronounced by somebody who's an authority, because it's one of those funny things about comics too, is that like,
I mean, I I'll tell you one of my big blind spots that apparently is huge for everybody but me is that the 97 X-Men cartoon.
yeah, I haven't
They
seen that
I
either.
they had to have
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
yeah,
Da-da-da-da-da.
uh but
Da-da-da-da-da.
they had to have pronounced
Da-da.
it at some point during that show, right?
Right.
I don't remember if they did. I believe it's Shiar, but
Yeah.
I don't.
That works for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the reasons I like audiobooks, particularly from reputable. I mean, there are certain people who you put more effort into putting together the audiobooks than others, and like, because you know that they asked the author, so how do we pronounce this? How do we pronounce that? So you get kind of a definitive pronunciation of certain things.
And then the author goes, I don't fucking know.
That happens sometimes too.
Look, there's no vowels in this word. What do you It's like, I don't fucking know.
Mhm. Yeah, how do you pronounce Mr.
Uh,
Mixpletics?
you know, I Paul Dini was on the commentary track for the first Mixis Spitlick.
Mr. Spicklet.
Mixix Spitlick.
Okay.
Mixix Spitlick. Paul Dini is very uh definitive on what he is talking. He's like, it is mix yes Spitlick. Mix yes
Okay.
Spitlick.
Mr.
And I'm
Spicklet.
like, I always thought it was Mixoplick for years.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, it
Mystic.
was when I was a kid, I was it's Mr. Mixoplick. But I
Mystic
actually
X.
when he actually kind of sounded it out, and it mixed
Right.
yes Spitlick, and I'm like, okay,
Mr.
that makes
Spitlick.
sense.
Okay. Yeah. But now
Mix
we
yes
are
Spit.
so far off the road and down the rabbit hole and
But
at like the 2 hour mark. So it might
talk
be,
talk about a character that I really wish Kirby had taken care
oh my God, that would have been fun. Oh my God, that would have been fun. Um,
Anyway, for the
so yeah.
22 Panels podcast,
The Fourth World Book Club on 22 panels. We will see you after the next page.